Welcome back to this video about Awen. What is it, why is it important, and where does it come from? Hello, my name is Hugh Evans, and whilst visiting Stonehenge and Avebury a couple of weeks ago with friends, I was involved with discussions with a number of people, and people's view of what Awen is varies quite a lot. So I thought I'd make this video about what Awen is. Here on the right hand side we see the modern symbol for Awen. So this has been created from an ancient symbol which is somewhat similar, where the three lines, there's a vertical line in the middle and two slanting lines on either side, and it looks like it's light emanating from a source far away. Awen means wellness. In regard to the bardic tradition, it's inspiration, but it's also benevolence between people. It's a bliss that a person can experience or can pervade a group. And in today's modern world, we probably think of it more as goodwill, spirit, the spark of life perhaps, or the stuff of everything. So Awen is quite important. It is made up of two words, A, which is a prefix, and Wen. Wen is the shortening of the word Gwen. A as a prefix makes the target word or the following word super or great, like we would use supermarket, or if we put a lot of veries in front, very, very, very good or benevolent. And Gwen means a smile, it is bliss, it is a gleam, it is wishing, it is also spirit. And Gwen is also represented as a female name. And following the Hermetic traditions, one of the 7 great Hermetic principles is where there is a female nature, there is a corresponding male nature, and so we have the male version of this name, which is Owen, and the O is the masculine first person pronoun, like he. Awen is also from the same root word that gives the name for Venus. Venus was known as Gwyneth for a very long period of time before the Romans decided to pinch the name and change it because they couldn't pronounce Gwen. And as you can see from the picture of Venus on the right there, it is the only planet that smiles at us after the moon. The moon is very clear with its phases, but Venus also has phases. It will show a smile as it moves around the sun and we view it from Earth. So our ancient ancestors must have been able to see Venus in quite some detail long before the telescope was invented. Gwen as a word is from a smaller word, Gwe, which means web, weave or network, and this word is used in many other words. Gwed is utterance, Gwyd is say or speak. So a network of speaking may be represented in this sense. This is also why perhaps a number of religions report that in their creation myth, God uttered the creation of the universe and it was created. Gwen is so important that ancient British named the bee Gwen, which means a little bit of spirit, a little bit of bliss, a little bit of heaven. They knew it was incredibly important to make the world a fertile and productive place. It seems that we have forgotten that importance these days. Gwen is very softly mutated to Gwyn, as we can see in this dictionary excerpt, and Gwyn also means spirit. It is the colour white, the colour of heaven, and can relate to a star. Gwyneth is the place of the star maps and is also the heaven that Enoch went to chart the stars. Gwe is also part of words such as Gwez, Gwezgryth, and Gwethid, which have celestial implications for circumrotation and the spindle and axis of the heavens. So Gwe is an important word in terms of space and the definition of the universe. It's also important for the concept of time, both in the moment and over very long periods. And here we have the star maps of Gwyneth. The orange line is the ecliptic. I've put on the constellations around the ecliptics, the 12 signs of the Zodiac. And the white shading is the Milky Way that crosses the entire star map as the Milky Way crosses the entire celestial heavens in a continuous band. And in my book, The Origin of Numbers, I defined number 3 to mean the Milky Way. Only can 3 be defined after numbers 1 and 2 have been defined, since it relies on the previous numbers, as do all the numbers. Number 1 is the framework, the conceptualization of space of the universe rotating around an axis. Number 2 is the sun, the metronomic tick-tock of time in the moment that we all experience. But number 3 takes time to the next level, the concept of time as having a past, a present, and a future. The past is the spirit world, inhabited by the gods, or our ancestors. The present is the mortal world, inhabited by ourselves, and the future is the underworld, inhabited by those that have passed, who are on the last great journey to join our ancestors. And this spirit, Awen, is very much connected with what we might consider our soul, both as the individual and as the collective. And as we travel through this mortal world, we gain the benevolence of our ancestors, and as we then pass into the underworld, we will then recycle this goodwill and benevolence back to future generations. This is the ancients' understanding of spirits, and it is called Awen. On the star maps of Gwyneth, the spirit plane is above the ecliptic to the north. This is where our ancient ancestors and the gods inhabit. This Awen flows through into the mortal world across the ecliptic on the Milky Way and reaches the constellation Cassiopeia in the middle, which I have put a pink arrow. There it is. There's Cassiopeia in the middle. and the Awen flows through the ecliptic into the underworld when souls pass and out to the west. In the ancient British tradition, Cassiopeia is called Dawn, and here is Dawn. She sits on the Milky Way. She is the matriarch of the heavens, pouring goodwill into every living soul. The Milky Way crosses over her cauldron, and the Awen flows into the mortal world. Here is a diagram showing the flow of Awen through the spirit plane across the ecliptic into the mortal world where we exist. Here is Cassiopeia in the middle, which we will look at in a minute, and then as we pass, the souls cross the ecliptic again and pass into the underworld and take the last great journey on the great ship to the west. And here is Dawn. At the top of the northern celestial heavens, there is the North Celestial Pole with Polaris in the middle. This is the direction of the Milky Way, and here is Cassiopeia, Dawn, if you want to use the British tradition. The W that we're all familiar with, which you've probably seen in the night sky, and this is her consort, Cepheus, who is also known as Belly Moor. And there is the Milky Way. On the star maps of Gwyneth, the constellation is shown more than a W. All of these mountains have names that reflect their role in this constellation. So we have the traditional W that we know as Cassiopeia today, but these other mountains are named such that a cauldron is created on the ground with a ladle in it, and there are alignments to the solstices through these points around the cauldron. So it is not a coincidence that the constellation has been laid out in this manner on the ground, and perhaps in ancient British times the constellation was considered to be more sophisticated than the W we associate with Cassiopeia today. And here is the flow of Awen coming out of the Milky Way into the cauldron, and it flows down this mountain called Dialt into the river Dee, and the word Dialt means descent of godliness. Do is God, out is an ascent or a descent. So the Awen descends into the river Dee, and this was the only river that Druids could use sacred water from for their particular activities, let's say. So this is the flow of Awen into the mortal world. And when souls pass, they cross the ecliptic again, going from our mortal world into the underworld, taking the last great journey on the great ship to the west, taking their Awen back to the ancestors on the Milky Way and continuing this circle of benevolence, which I hope is a great satisfaction and an assurance for people that the continuation of life is a benevolent circle. And if you have enjoyed that, you can share this benevolence by just giving a thumbs up on the video or sending this link to a friend. That's all you have to do to share the benevolence. And there is the Awen symbol again, the 3 lines representing the equinox and the solstices, but also perhaps the 3 planes, the spiritual, the mortal, and the underworld. I hope you've enjoyed that. explanation, and I'd like to see you again the next time. Thank you.